The AITA for telling my infertile sister she doesn't deserve to be a mother after she ruined my wedding and now wants to co-parent my baby. So, I'm 27, married, and currently pregnant with my second kid. My life's not perfect, but it's good, at least now that I've cut off my family. Yeah, family drama is kind of the theme here. I went no contact with them about 3 years ago, and honestly, it's been one of the healthiest decisions I've ever made. But, as you probably guessed, they've recently popped back into my life, and not in a fun. To give you some context, my older sister Pam is 30. She's always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. If you grew up with siblings, you probably know what I mean. She was the straight-A student, the prom queen, the one they always bragged about at family gatherings. Meanwhile, I was the messy one, the one who liked art instead of science, the one who tripped over my own feet during soccer practice. You get the picture. Pam's life, however, hasn't exactly been smooth sailing recently. She's been struggling with infertility for years. She's done multiple rounds of IVF with no success, and I know that's devastating. I wouldn't wish that pain on anyone. But here's where things get messy. Ever since my family found out I was pregnant again, they've been crawling out of the woodwork trying to reconnect. And not just for the warm and fuzzy family reunion vibes either. My parents actually had the audacity to suggest that I let Pam be, I don't know, like a co-mom to my baby. I'm not even sure what that means. They said something along the lines of, Pam deserves to experience motherhood too, and that since I'm already a mom, I should share the joy. Like my baby is some kind of group project. It was so absurd that at first I thought they were joking. I tried to be polite about it. At first, I told them I wasn't comfortable with the idea and that my husband and I wanted to raise our child ourselves. That's when they started guilt-tripping me, saying I was being selfish and that Pam's been through so much. They even had the gall to say it wasn't fair that I could have kids and she couldn't, as if my ability to have children was some kind of personal attack on her. It was exhausting. Pam herself didn't reach out directly at first, but I could tell she was behind it. She's always had this way of getting my parents to do her dirty work. And look, I get that she's hurting, but I don't think that gives her, or anyone, the right to bulldoze over my boundaries. So yeah, that's where things stand right now. My family wants to play happy families and pretend the last 3 years didn't happen, but only because it benefits Pam. I haven't caved, and honestly, I don't think I will. But the whole thing's brought up a lot of old wounds, and I need to get this off my chest. To really explain why I've stayed in no contact with my family, I need to rewind a few years to my wedding. This was basically the breaking point for me, the moment when I realized my family didn't actually care about me. They just cared about keeping Pam happy. Here's what happened. Pam was in the middle of divorcing her husband at the time. It was messy, and she was understandably upset, but life doesn't stop just because one person is going through a tough time. My then fiancé, now husband, and I had been planning our wedding for over a year. We'd already booked the venue, paid deposits, sent out save the dates, the whole deal. Then, about 2 months before the big day, my parents sat me down and said I needed to postpone the wedding. Their reasoning? It would be insensitive to Pam, given what she was going through. I swear, they actually said, how do you think it'll make Pam feel to watch her little sister get married when her marriage just fell apart? Like what? I was stunned. I remember sitting there in my living room, just staring at them, trying to process how they could even suggest something so ridiculous. I told them, politely at first, that the wedding was going forward as planned. That's when they flipped the switch. Suddenly, I was the bad guy for not thinking about Pam's feelings. They accused me of being selfish and heartless, and they made it clear that if I didn't postpone, they wouldn't come to the wedding. I was devastated. I mean, who wants to get married without their parents there? But I couldn't let them hold my wedding hostage, so I stood my ground. I figured they'd cool off eventually and show up anyway. Spoiler, they didn't. Pam, meanwhile, went full drama queen. She started spreading rumors to anyone who would listen, saying I had stolen her husband. I'm not even kidding. She told people that my fiancé and I had somehow come between them, which is absolutely insane because I barely knew her husband and my fiancé, and I had been together for years before they even got married. But Pam was always good at playing the victim, and a lot of people believed her. When the wedding day finally came, most of my family didn't show up. It was heartbreaking. I had aunts, uncles, cousins, People I'd grown up with skipped the wedding because of the lies Pam spread about me. My mom and dad didn't even bother to call or text. I remember standing in the bridal suite, trying to hold it together while my bridesmaids, thank God for them, did their best to keep me distracted. In the end, the wedding was small but beautiful. My husband's family came through for us in a big way, and so did our friends. I tried to focus on the people who were there rather than the ones who weren't, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't hurt. It felt like my family had chosen Pam over me again, and that's when I decided I was done. I didn't make a big announcement or anything. I just stopped calling, stopped texting, stopped visiting. And honestly, they didn't seem to care. Not until now, anyway. Looking back, I think that was the moment I really started to see Pam for who she was. But at the time, I didn't know the full story. That came later, and trust me, it was a doozy. So, fast forward about a year after the wedding. I hadn't spoken to Pam or my parents in all that time. My life had been so much quieter and, honestly, better without the constant drama. Then one day, totally out of the blue, I ran into Pam's ex-husband, Dave, at a coffee shop. And when I say ran into, I mean it was one of those awkward moments where you both look at each other, do a double take, and then have to decide whether to pretend you didn't see each other or say hi. I went with a hesitant hey, because, well, I'm not a total jerk. Dave was surprisingly nice about it. He asked how I was doing, and we ended up sitting down to chat for a bit. It was kind of weird at first because, I'd been accused of stealing this guy, but he didn't seem to hold any grudge against me. In fact, he apologized for all the drama back then and said that he knew I had nothing to do with their divorce. That was a relief to hear, but it also made me curious. If I wasn't the reason their marriage fell apart, what was? I didn't want to pry, but Dave must have sensed I had questions because he just came out and told me. Apparently, the real reason they got divorced was that Pam had stopped taking her birth control without telling him. She'd been desperate to have a baby and thought that if she just got pregnant, he'd come around and be okay with it. But when he found out, he felt completely betrayed. Who wouldn't? That's a huge violation of trust. He told me that when he confronted her about it, she tried to spin it like it was his fault for not wanting kids right away. She even accused him of being unsupportive of her dreams of motherhood. When that didn't work, she turned to my parents to try and guilt him into staying, but by then, the damage was done. He filed for divorce, and that was that. I sat there in complete shock, trying to process everything. All those lies Pam had spread about me, how I'd supposedly ruined her marriage, were just her way of deflecting blame. She didn't want anyone to know the truth, so she made me the scapegoat. I thanked Dave for telling me and left the coffee shop feeling equal parts vindicated and furious. It was great to finally know the truth, but it also opened up this whole Pandora's box of resentment. Like, how many times had Pam gotten away with something like this? How many times had my parents blindly defended her while making me out to be the bad guy? When I got home, I told my husband everything. He wasn't surprised, which kind of hurt, honestly. He just said, yeah, that sounds like something Pam would do. I guess he'd seen through her long before I did. That was the moment I knew I'd made the right decision by cutting them all off. If my family couldn't even be bothered to find out the truth before turning their backs on me, then I didn't need them in my life. But of course, as you already know, they weren't done causing problems for me. So, fast forward to now. Like I said earlier, I'm pregnant with my second child, and life has been really good, quiet, peaceful, and finally drama-free after years of cutting off my family. My husband and I have built this little bubble of love and stability for ourselves and our toddler, and I was so determined to keep it that way. But, of course, when my family caught wind of this pregnancy, they came barreling back into my life with all the subtlety of a freight train. To this day, I have no idea how they found out. I didn't tell them. I didn't even post about it on social media in the early months because I wanted to avoid exactly this kind of situation. Maybe it was a nosy extended family member or someone who saw me out and about with my growing bump. Either way, once they knew, it was like a floodgate had opened. It started innocently enough with a couple of texts from my mom. The kind that sound sweet on the surface but are loaded with guilt. "We just want to be part of your life again," she wrote. "This baby could bring us all back together." I left her on read because, honestly, I wasn't ready to open that door again. Then my dad left me a voicemail, and let me tell you, it was a classic, full of emotional manipulation, talking about how family is family and how Pam's been through so much. Don't you think this is a chance to heal old wounds? I didn't respond to him either, but I could feel the storm brewing. Then Pam herself reached out. And let me just say, I should have known better than to even open her message, but curiosity got the best of me. Her text started out so fake sweet, it practically gave me whiplash. "Hey, I heard the good news. Congrats on the baby. I'm so happy for you." It was like she was trying to act like we were best friends or something, which was laughable considering we hadn't spoken in years. But then, as I kept reading, the real Pam came through. She started talking about how much she's been praying for a way to experience motherhood and how maybe this baby could be a blessing for both of us. I didn't understand what she was getting at first, like, did she just want to be an aunt or something? But then, near the end of her message, she dropped the bombshell. She wanted to share my baby with me. She actually suggested that we co-parent my child, as if that was some reasonable, normal thing to ask of your estranged sister. And the worst part? Pam framed it like I owed it to her. She said, "You already have one child, and now you're having another. Don't you think it's only fair to let me be part of this one's life? I've been through so much, and I deserve this chance." Fair? Fair. I sat there staring at my phone, absolutely stunned. My hands were shaking. I was so angry. My baby isn't some consolation prize for her IVF struggles. I get that infertility is heartbreaking. I really do, but that doesn't give her the right to claim someone else's child as her own. It was so out of line, I can't even put it into words. I didn't hold back when I responded. I told her in no uncertain terms that my child is not hers to share, and that she needs to take a serious look at herself if she thinks this kind of request is remotely okay. And yeah, I might have gone a little too far, because I also said something like, "You've proven time and again that you're not fit to be a mother." And this is just another example. Was it harsh? Sure. Do I regret it? Not really. Predictably, she didn't take it well. Within hours, my parents were blowing up my phone, accusing me of being cruel and selfish. My mom even tried to play the religion card, saying it was God's plan for me to help Pam become a mother and that I was standing in the way of something bigger than myself. I blocked them all. I thought that would be the end of it, but of course, Pam couldn't resist taking things public. She made this long, dramatic post on Facebook about how some people in her life, aka me, were refusing to support her during her time of need. She painted herself as this tragic figure, talking about how much she suffered and how all she's ever wanted was to be a mom. She didn't name me directly, but it was obvious who she was talking about. And of course, my parents jumped in to back her up, commenting things like, "We just want to see our family reunited, and this baby could be the miracle we've been waiting for." At first, I was furious. I wanted to respond so badly. I wanted to write my own post, detailing every lie, every manipulation, every horrible thing Pam and my parents had done to me over the years. But my husband, bless him, talked me down. He reminded me that engaging with them would only give them more power over me, and that I didn't owe anyone an explanation. Instead, I posted something simple and to the point. For those asking, I've been estranged from my family for years due to ongoing issues. Please respect my privacy as I focus on my pregnancy and my family. It wasn't dramatic, but it was enough to get the message across. A few mutual friends and extended family members reached out privately after that. And when I told them the truth about the wedding, the lies, the co-parenting nonsense, they were horrified. Some of them even called Pam out publicly, which I didn't expect but definitely appreciated. The backlash must have caught Pam off guard because she ended up deleting her post within a few days. My parents went quiet after that too, which honestly felt like a small victory. But even with them out of the picture for now, I can't pretend it doesn't still hurt. These are the people who are supposed to love and support me, and instead, they've spent years tearing me down. It's exhausting. So for now, I'm focusing on my little family, my husband, my toddler, and the baby we're so excited to welcome into the world. I've accepted that my relationship with my parents and Pam might never be repaired, and honestly, I'm okay with that. I've learned that family isn't always about blood. It's about the people who show up for you, who love you unconditionally, and who respect your boundaries. And I've got that in my husband, my kids, and the friends who've stood by me through all of this. If there's one thing I've learned from this whole mess, It's that walking away from toxic relationships isn't easy, but it's worth it. Sometimes the best thing you could do for yourself and for your kids is to break the cycle and build a better, healthier life. And that's exactly what I'm doing.